Hey class, I'm glad to be with you again this week. The discussion point for this week is this: do children inherit the sin nature from their fathers? That's a very good question. Erickson brings out two points of thought. This is one of them: federal headship. Another, natural headship. Federal headship means that Adam was all of mankind's representative to God when it comes to sin. He chose to sin, and therefore he, as the representative, it affected all of us. That can be a very logical explanation, and we can rationalize that. But the problem with that, in my mind, is I don't see a lot of biblical evidence towards it. Does God judge all of mankind because of Adam's one choice? And that would denote that our parents, our sin isn't inherited or isn't transferred from parent to child. That sounds good, and actually it won't mean you're lost if you believe that. But in reality, biblically, I should say that there's another answer to this. Well, we may not want to think that we were in Adam when Adam sinned. The Bible kind of points to that. The natural headship means that we inherited from Adam, and we were in Adam in a very real way when he took a bite of that fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, instead of taking a bite of the tree of life. And as we look at Adam, 130 years after he was created, bore a son named Seth. And in Genesis 5:3, it tells us that he begot a son in his own likeness, after his image, and called his name Seth. So there's some of we understand inheritance, we understand physical likeness towards our parents. If I were to walk into a store here in my town, and somebody knows the Welch family, they would look at me and I would know immediately what they're thinking. They're going to ask a question: Are you a Welch? And it's happened more than once, because the Welches in this area, we're a small town. The Welches where I live are well known. My dad's the fire chief. My uncle is one of the top technicians or mechanics for the tractors and cars and farm equipment in our area. My grandfather is very well known, and his father was very well known. My cousins, not so much, but when my cousins or my siblings walk into a store and there's somebody that knows our family, they'll ask that question: Are you a Welch? And we'd have to say guilty as charged if we're honest, because we have some physical attributes that are alike. In fact, our walks are very similar. The way we hold ourselves, we posture ourselves, that's learned attributes, but it's still part of our physiological makeup that is inherited from our parents. So that's understandable. That's very logical, natural, but biblically there's something even deeper than that. There seems to be a spiritual transfer from Adam and from our parents to us, specifically our fathers. The Bible gives the husband of the family, the father of the family, the authority or the responsibility to raise the children. Nowhere in the Bible does it say the women are supposed to raise the children in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. It says the fathers are not supposed to provoke the children unto wrath, and the fathers are supposed to nurture them and to teach them, even all the way back to Deuteronomy 6. We're supposed to teach our children to fear and love the Lord. And with that understanding and that responsibility, there comes an understanding that there is a natural inheritance, or can I say this is spiritual inheritance, that is given to our children from the fathers. Not that the women have nothing to do with it, but we as humans find our origination in Adam, our germ in Adam. Just like you can trace here in farmland, I can trace one apple tree. I can trace its genealogy. I can trace its makeup to the original tree that they spliced into those other trees to make it a Fuji apple or a pink lady. That's what we're kind of known for here in Cortland, or the Bartlett pears that are all around us. We can find those genealogies as well. That's kind of cool. Even more intricate is the human DNA and these ancestry tests that are going out. We can find our ancestry. We can find out who we belong to and who our parents were, because there's a natural passing of DNA, of inheritable physical attributes through natural procreation. And so there's some spiritual passing as well. And since Adam was the original man, and Eve was made out of Adam, the rib was taken and she was formed out of Adam. That's why she's called the woman. And Adam had the responsibility. He was made first. And being the one who disobeyed God deliberately as the head, the natural head of the race, of the human race, that sin therefore passed upon all men. Romans 5 is the text, I'm sure, everybody's going to go to this week. Romans 5, verses 12 through 19. I'm just going to read verse 12 because I think it helps us understand the whole process. He says, wherefore, as by one man's sin, that's Adam, one man's sin entered into the world. There wasn't sin before that. Now there's sin all over the world because one man's sin. It says, and death by sin, the evidence of that sin, the just conclusion of sin is death, physical death, but also a spiritual death, a separation from God. And here he says, and so death passed upon all men. That's that spiritual separation from God, and the physical death has passed upon all men. That term passed upon means that it's been given, it's been passed in a direction to somebody or something else. And so we have had his sin nature passed upon us because he brought that into the world. And we were in him in a very real way. And then it says this, for that all have sinned. Psalm 51, David tells us that in sin or iniquity did my mother conceive me. In our conception, there's iniquity. Sexual relations isn't necessarily iniquity, but because there is a sinful people involved in that procreation, we're born into sin. And that's my understanding of that. And so as we go through that, of course, as you read the rest of Romans 5 and all into Romans 6, we can say, thank the Lord that we have Jesus Christ, the Son of God, to break that sin curse through his death, shedding of blood, his burial and resurrection. And our faith in him is what allows us to break that sin nature, to put that sin nature to death and bring about the spiritual nature, to bring our spiritual side alive. We're dead in sins and our trespasses and sins, Colossians tells us, and Ephesians tells us as well. But he's quickened us through faith in him. And so what's another biblical proof that natural headship is kind of a school of thought to go along with? Hebrews 7, 9 through 10 is a great passage to look at, to understand that we were in our forefathers, if you can let me say it that way. We are in our forefathers all the way back to Adam. It talks about Levi and Abraham. He says this, and as I may say so, Levi also, who receiveth tithes, paid tithes in Abraham. For he was yet in the loins of his father when Melchizedek met him. He's talking about the time when Abraham whipped those kings that took Lot and Sodom and Gomorrah and some other into captivity. And he came and with his people and his men and beat them and drove them off, killed them. And Melchizedek came. He was the Prince of Peace. I believe he was the Prince of the Jerusalem, where Jerusalem is now. It wasn't called Jerusalem, it was Salem. And he gave tithes to this honorable priest, Melchizedek, this priest of righteousness, the priest of God there. Some believe that's a pre-incarnate form of Christ. I don't tend to believe that. I think he's a type of Christ, of course. But it tells us that Abraham gave tithes, and therefore Levi was in Abraham's loins. Well, Abraham gave the tithes, so Levi gave that tithes also. That kind of helps us understand that we were in our forefathers all the way back to the original gene, if you can if you can understand the Welchism there, Gene, Abraham or Adam was there in the Garden of Eden, making that decision to disobey and eat of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. We were, in a very real way, right there with him because he is the originator of all of mankind. We were in him, and that inheritance now, that spiritual death now passes upon every single human being, for that all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. Aren't you thankful, though, that Jesus Christ died on the cross for our sins? Our sin nature has been defeated through Jesus' shed blood and resurrection. And we can have a life now that we can consciously choose to live in the Spirit of God. So I believe that the sin nature is imputed upon children through the Father. And that goes all the way back to our inheritance with Adam. Thank you for watching this. I pray you have a wonderful week. Pray that God blesses your ministry and really shows you power when you submit to him in ministering to those who are so needy in our time. Thank you for your faithfulness. God bless.